Alright boys, we need to talk. Now in life we don't have many black and whites at all, really. There's a lot of nuance to just about everything. But I'm going to give you one that we do have. We do have black coffee. And I do think that it's pretty black and white. How pretty much everyone should be using coffee to get social. And I'm going to be building a case for that in this video. Basically, over the past month or so that I haven't really posted, still working on that, still trying to get a more consistent posting schedule. But in that, I kind of developed a coffee addiction, and I want to let you guys know that that's not a bad thing to have. I find that it's really hard to get rid of a vice, and I think it's very hard to get rid of the last vice specifically. Whenever you're deep in the bad habits, there's a bunch of little vices. There's the video games, there's the junk food, there's whatever anime you're watching. Even though I have been watching some anime lately, and I'm not too upset about that. I've been watching a show called Mob Psycho. I've been redoing Naruto. It's been pretty great. Things have been good. I don't necessarily see that as a bad habit. I see it as art, but that's digressing. If you do see it as a bad habit and you're doing it, then it's bad. And it's weighing on your conscience. It's probably making you feel like a nerd, so you probably don't want that. So in that, sure, maybe quitting anime isn't bad, quitting video games isn't bad, but in my cut, quitting food was bad. It was very difficult, and in that, I had to develop a new vice, a positive vice, and not necessarily something that I could rely on, but something that could bring me joy in a time of despair. And in that, I found coffee. I found that when the days were really bad and I'm on 3 hours of sleep because of a late night out, I'm able to drink 5 cups of coffee and the day isn't so bad anymore. And it's not that I'm relying on the coffee. It's not that coffee is the drug that makes me happy, that brings me artificial happiness. It brings me natural happiness because it's something that I enjoy, that gives me energy. I enjoy the taste, I enjoy the flavor, and it makes me social. And I found a positive vice that I'm going to share with you guys. Now, I believe that everyone should use coffee to get social, because social should be probably your first priority if you're anything like me. If things are going bad in your life, probably the first step that you can take to make them good is to get social. So, I'm going to teach you guys how to do that. First off, start drinking coffee. A little personal story from me. I tend to get into my head during conversations, and it's mostly starting up the conversations. I hate the idea of walking up to someone and not knowing what to say. So I'll sit there and think of something to say for minutes at a time. And by the time that I finally think of something that I want to say, hey bro, I like your shirt. It took 5 minutes to think of that. I never actually end up walking up to the guy and telling him I like his shirt, even when I want to, because that window passed. Maybe something else is going on. He's talking to someone else. I had an opportunity to talk to someone and I didn't. And when enough of that compounds, I just end up talking to no one. That 5 minute window of thinking, what am I going to say, suddenly stops me from being able to interact at all. It's a paralysis by analysis. In reality, I could walk up to him and make a fool out of myself, and it wouldn't matter at all, and I would be slightly more socialized for the day. And maybe I do make a fool out of myself for the first 3 people I talk to in the day, but the fourth person I talk to, I won't make a fool out of myself. It'll be an electric connection. Maybe I network with someone new and suddenly I have a friend to go and box with, to go out cliff diving with, whatever I'm trying to do to build a story for myself. It's helpful to have that network, to have those people to talk to. So coffee helped me fix that problem. We identified the problem of can't really socialize because I think too much. And coffee has the ability to trick your brain into being more action oriented. The more energy that you have, the more you're going to want to get up and do stuff. That's all it is. So, in drinking coffee, I like to think of it as giving you an energy bank. My energy bank has a certain pool of energy. Say I have 100 energy points for the day, and maybe I use 60 naturally because my body's trying to conserve energy in the event of maybe a bear comes. Maybe I got to run away, so I have to have a little bit of energy stockpiled. But in reality, that's going to ultimately hurt me because I have 100 energy points and I never really end up using the 100 because the bear never really ends up coming. And we live in a world where you don't really have to worry about the bear. We live in a society. Sure, maybe there will be a one-off event where something terrible happens and you do have to be in fight or flight mode. But the odds of that happening at the end of your day when you're off of 6 cups of coffee, they're not very high. And even then, you're not using 100% of your energy. But coffee allows you to take from that energy pool more than you had in the first place. So you have 100 energy points, and coffee lets you tap into maybe 20% more energy usage than you mentally wanted to use before, and it gives you the ability to do that, meaning your body's literally going to be more efficient. Maybe not more efficient, but you're going to produce more, you're going to want to do more, and I'm a firm believer that the more energy that you spend, the more energy you create. So I believe that in that cycle, you're going to ultimately be a more action-focused person in general. And being action-focused is very high value right now because the world rewards doers. If you get stuck in your head thinking, look at all the great thinkers of the world who didn't really tap into this action potential, that got caught up in their mind, that got caught up in comfort. Things don't end well for them. They all pretty much die isolated and like unmarried. And I don't want either of those things. I want the opposite of those things, actually. And I think you should too. Or maybe you don't. If you don't, then you can click off this video. I still think coffee would benefit you because you can work harder. But if you do want to be isolated, that's fine. I wouldn't recommend it. I want to give a little disclaimer here. Every single piece of research that I'm going to talk about is hearsay. You can try to debunk them in the comments, but I know of a study that compared actively smoking cigarettes and being isolated, and it found that actively smoking cigarettes and being isolated basically caused a similar amount of harm to your body. So, moral of that story, don't be isolated. I'm going to throw a ton of stats out right now because I think it'll be helpful. Now let's talk about coffee. We know we don't want to be isolated. We know coffee lets you take from that energy bank, and it helps you to be a doer. Now we don't want to use that as a crutch, but we will use it as a tool. We will use it to get that initial hump of, I want to be more social. So, what we're going to do actionably is we're going to drink a coffee before work. We're going to drink a coffee before we go out with our friends. And then we're going to be really focused on just talking to as many people as possible. Just saying anything that you think of. You remotely like someone's style, tell them you like their style. If you're curious about what someone's goals are, say they're at a coffee shop working on their laptop, literally wave at them, catch eye contact, smile, and go talk to them. And boom, that's your formula for getting social. Now let's answer some objections. I don't want to be addicted to coffee because when I see adults being addicted to coffee and having to drink coffee in the morning, every morning, I think it's kind of cringe. And I don't want that for myself. Okay, to answer that objection, That was my original objection to drinking coffee. That's why I was a zero caffeine. I don't want to be addicted to it. The answer to that is simple. Every piece of research I've seen about caffeine has shown that your energy banks don't actually go down when you're quitting coffee. The only sort of addiction that comes from coffee, that comes from drinking coffee, comes from a chemical side of your brain. Meaning I am chemically reliant on coffee, but it doesn't impact your energy levels at all. When you wake up and you naturally get your energy, sure, it might be a little different than drinking coffee right at the start of the day, but you don't have a lower baseline energy than you would have had in the first place. You're just chemically reliant on coffee, and you're going to experience some withdrawals. Now, I have also seen some data on coffee becoming less effective the more often that you drink it, but this can be reset by just taking a couple weeks off, maybe even a week off. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. And that will reset your coffee sensitivity. Maybe not completely, but a good amount. And you'll be good as new. Now, a lot of people seem to have this conception that drinking a lot of caffeine is bad for your heart. But I would suggest that you read into the data, do your own research. I've seen enough for me to personally drink as much coffee as I can. But some of the research that I've seen has suggested people who drink 5 or more cups of coffee a day will have 20% less heart disease than someone who drinks 0. And the numbers correlate upwards. Like if you drink 1 cup of coffee, it's a little bit less heart disease. And 5+ actually had the least amount of heart disease out of everybody. That's pretty crazy because I thought caffeine was the antichrist.